For context, years ago, I, 20F, and the father of my first two children, 26M, were going through a rough time in our relationship. He was working night shifts as a janitor in a nursing home while I was attending college for nursing during the day. We had a 1-year-old, and I had just given birth to our son 3 months earlier. There was a woman he worked with whom I had gotten to know pretty well when I would bring him his lunches. We were friends, or so I thought. He was supposed to be working on tasks at night when no one was up and about. Coincidentally, my cousin ran into him having drinks with her at a local bar on one of the nights he was supposed to be working. This led to a significant argument, him getting off work early, and explanations of being just friends, and so on. About a month later, the talk came up. We had been arguing too much, so we decided to keep things amicable for the sake of the kids and remain friends. Mind you, the house was mine, and I paid the bills with grants and scholarships I earned through school. The car he drove was also mine. I allowed him to stay while he figured things out. I even continued to take my car to work, fed him, and all that good stuff. Then, he started being affectionate, and we continued a physical relationship. One morning, as I was feeding our son while he still slept, his phone went off. I know, I shouldn't have snooped, right? It turns out he had been carrying on a relationship with the other woman the whole time he was with me. It would have been fine if that's what he wanted, if he wasn't doing the same with me at the same time. This led to some petty revenge. I crawled back into bed with him, naked, and he snuggled up like he always does. I took pictures from his phone, quite graphic ones. I sent them to her from his phone, along with a message that I believed was nicely worded, explaining everything he had been up to. I got dressed, all while enjoying the delightful pings from his phone, and continued about my day, packing his things. A few hours later, he woke up and reached for his phone. I happened to enter the room as he tried to call her, and when he turned to look at me, I could see all the blood rush from his face. He couldn't even mount a defense as I told him all about the conversation I'd had with his new girlfriend, along with some photos. I had already boxed up all his things and placed them on the porch. I informed him that he no longer lived in my house and needed to leave. He started to talk about where he would go, and I simply told him to call his girlfriend to come pick him up because he wouldn't be using my vehicle anymore. It sounded like his problem. I then shut the door on him. I had been with this man-child for 6 years, giving him my body, heart, and sanity. I was even willing to let him continue living in my house, not paying bills, eating there, and using my car while he was seeing both of us at the same time. Was it petty? Absolutely, but I believe it was well-deserved.
In January 2021, I embarked on my career journey with a prominent American energy company operating in Europe. This company specialized in the energy sector, with a particular focus on gas turbines. At the factory plant where I started working, our primary task was to assess and rework parts of these gas turbines so they could be restored to their optimal condition. These components, when brand new, were quite expensive and had a lengthy lifespan. By reworking them, we could extend their useful life, making it more cost-effective for our customers. The heart of our operation was the advanced 3D computer-managed measuring machine, a crucial piece of equipment used to assess the components. However, mastering the machine's operation, maintenance, and repair was not a straightforward task. Thankfully, I had the guidance of Antonio, a seasoned colleague who took me under his wing. Antonio had been with the company for decades, and he was a treasure trove of knowledge about the machine. Our facility enjoyed a unique position in the market, as the components we worked on were designed and produced in-house. This meant we had a steady stream of work and minimal competition. Over time, this led to complacency within the management. Competence, innovation, and honesty were no longer valued attributes as long as the workers followed established processes and completed their tasks. This comfortable status quo would ultimately contribute to our troubles. When I joined the company, my role was in quality control, with a specific focus on operating the measuring machine. Although the machine's operation wasn't overly complicated, it required attention to detail. Each part was thoroughly assessed, and the measurements were meticulously recorded. Typically, these components came in sets, ranging from 24 to 216 pieces, depending on their size. However, the issue that plagued our workplace was a toxic culture of favoritism and cliques. The facility's social dynamics often dictated who could bend the rules and escape accountability. While I was rule-driven and adhered to the company's standards, I chose not to get caught up in the office politics. I preferred to keep a low profile and focus on my work, realizing that it was a well-paying job despite the long commute. The problem started when I noticed discrepancies in how one of my colleagues, Igor, handled his responsibilities. Igor seemed to have little regard for established procedures, causing disruptions in our workflow. I brought this issue to the attention of the management, but my concerns were met with resistance and hostility from Igor and his superiors. It was evident that there was a reluctance to hold Igor accountable, despite clear violations of the rules. The first incident occurred when Igor damaged the critical measuring machine and then tried to shift the blame onto me. The second, more severe issue arose when Igor damaged the machine once again and made an attempt to scapegoat me. With mounting frustration, I found myself in a toxic environment where wrongdoings were overlooked. The climax of the story arrived when I was wrongly accused of bullying Igor, and my termination was threatened. In a cool, calculated manner, I ensured the proper handover of equipment, and I left the company with my head held high. The aftermath of my departure had profound consequences for the facility, leading to multiple terminations and legal challenges. But there was a silver lining. I swiftly secured a new job, one that I found fulfilling and where my contributions were genuinely appreciated. Leaving that toxic environment marked a turning point in my life, and my career took a positive trajectory.
Once upon a time, in a quiet corner of the corporate world, a remarkable story unfolded through the life of a dear family friend. A man who dedicated his career to a company for nearly 4 decades, from the tender age of 26 to the ripe wisdom of 64. This tale of resilience, cunning, and justice, which I share with the utmost discretion at his behest, will remain veiled in anonymity to protect those involved. The saga commenced against a backdrop of shifting retirement laws, where the retirement age in the country evolved from 62 to 65 during his early 50s, only to climb further to 67 by the time he reached 62 to 63. Under the former regime, the company was a benevolent entity, treating its employees like family. One peculiar perk stood out: an extra week of vacation was awarded for every 6 years of service. This was in addition to the standard 4 weeks of leave, granting him an enviable total of 10 extra weeks by the time our story unfolds. Moreover, flexible remote work arrangements or an additional week off were granted for those unable to work from home, ensuring that he enjoyed a staggering 11 weeks of vacation every year. The family owners went above and beyond, allowing employees above 55 to determine when they used their vacation days. These could be taken consecutively, split across the year, or saved for their eventual retirement. In this country, submitting retirement paperwork to the government often resembled a tortoise's pace, taking years to calculate and initiate payment, leaving retirees with minimal income during this interim period. However, our protagonist, with over 44 years of experience as a well-compensated engineer, could anticipate a generous retirement package. The old owners, recognizing the absurd delay in retirement payouts, permitted employees to accumulate their vacation days for the final years. This meant they could take 20 to 30 weeks of vacation while their retirement papers were processed, thus extending their income during the initial payment period. But as they say, all good things must come to an end. The original owners, sensing an uncertain future for their business and grappling with the inevitability of old age, opted to sell the company to a subsidiary of a prominent soft drink manufacturer. This transition marked the beginning of an era of change. The workforce experienced a sudden shift, with the new ownership overturning established rules and policies. In our protagonist's department, which featured him and 2 colleagues, the changes brought forth calamity. The second colleague was dismissed, and the third tragically suffered a heart attack merely a week later, resting in peace. Additionally, the company opted to reduce our hero's salary by 15%, deeming his earnings excessive for a mere engineer. It was a series of blows that foreshadowed the impending turmoil. What set this department apart was a trio of valuable patents. These inventions included the machinery used for a specific process, a second patent detailing how to manufacture that machinery, and a third outlining the production process of a crucial component. These patents had been gifted to them by the original owners years ago when they had revolutionized production methods. Our protagonist suddenly found himself alone in the department at the age of 64, while the company hired 6 newcomers for him to train. Simultaneously, an arrangement was made allowing employees to claim their piled-up vacation time until the end of the year. Note the term claim as opposed to use. This gentleman, who had habitually taken only 1 to 5 weeks of vacation over the past decade, had amassed an astonishing 87 weeks of unused leave, including the current year. He went unnoticed under the new management's scrutiny. Weeks passed, and the new year dawned. Production was left to its own devices, but maintenance was neglected for a critical component. In week 11, the primary production line broke down, causing the management to escalate their visits. By week 13, the CEO had visited the gentleman's residence thrice, but the door remained unopened. Our protagonist had a network of insiders providing constant updates, and at that point, the company had just 4 weeks of backstock left. A tension-fueled standoff persisted for weeks. To the CEO's shock, the 6 untrained employees were left in idle confusion while the company's production balance teetered on the brink. In December, just before Christmas, the CEO made a daring move, instructing the engineer to return to work. Panic ensued as production was on the verge of grinding to a halt. He agreed to return for 3 days in exchange for the remaining week of claimed vacation. The gentleman mended the broken lines, left detailed instructions, and within a mere 3 days, everything was back to normal. However, the CEO insisted on renegotiating the training of the new recruits. The gentleman remained firm, refusing to resume training, ensuring that the future of production remained uncertain. An entire year passed with this standoff in place. The 66-year-old engineer begrudgingly returned every 5 weeks for 3 days, and production was left vulnerable during his absence. The CEO attempted to push for more training, but our hero held his ground. Upon completing his training visits, he decided to use his last 5 weeks of accumulated leave. The CEO, in a last-ditch effort, handed him a termination letter effective the day he was scheduled to return. This decision was troubling, as applying for retirement prematurely carried hefty penalties. The morning following his final day of leave, he returned to gather his belongings, having strategically emptied his locker over time. The company, aware of the impending storm, offered a substantial settlement for his termination without cause. The following day, he delivered a cease and desist letter to the company regarding the use of the 3 patents, having conspired with a fired colleague and the widow of their deceased friend and colleague. This unprecedented move forced the company to cease using the patented machinery and methods with immediate effect. As the company scrambled to resolve the production crisis, competitors had already developed and patented their own versions, providing an alternative but far costlier and slower method. This prompted a need to double their production lines to maintain their previous output. To fill the production void, the engineer negotiated a contract as an external contractor, maintaining ownership of the patents and maintaining the machinery. He received hourly compensation at his previous full-day rate, with on-call duties while a dedicated employee managed daily upkeep. Furthermore, he hired all 6 of the individuals he had trained in his new venture, offering them nearly double their prior wages. After rigorous training, they returned to their previous workplace, working on the very machinery they had been taught to operate. In a brilliant maneuver, the ousted CEO was subsequently terminated due to his actions, nearly halting production. The company suffered substantial financial losses through these events, but perhaps most importantly, they had to halt the use of the patented machinery. The funeral of the original owner brought together many former employees, and in their conversations, it became apparent that there were three similar cases of patent holders. These stories were corroborated by a shared culture of excellent treatment by the original owner. Our hero's story, however, stood out, as he strung the company along for nearly 2 years while collecting pay during his extended vacation period. The attendees at the funeral, including the owner's widow and sister, shared hearty laughs and recounted their unique experiences. The ultimate revenge had not only restored justice but had left an indelible mark in the annals of corporate legends.